With advanced English acquisition, learning English is as easy as ABC. Today we're looking at Track C, Conversational English. This is Video 1, an introduction. In the box on the left, that's the information zone. The blue box, that's where we'll find some interesting questions. And the black box, that's for videos and information.
Hi, my name is Jock Howson and I'm from 4c.com. Welcome to my Thinking English YouTube channel and welcome also to AEA, Advanced English Acquisition. Today we are looking at Track C, Conversational English, and this is Video 1, an introduction to the ideas behind our coaching in conversational English. For many English learners, there's a great sense of disappointment that, even after years of study and hours in a classroom or in front of their computer screen, they do not feel comfortable or competent in free-form English engagement, what we call conversational English. There are two reasons why this is true. The first is that whether you're in a class or reading a book, the English you are taught is rules-based English. It has to be. You have to be able to understand the rules of English to be able to use it at all. It's nobody's fault. It's just the way things have to be. Unfortunately, conversational English is not rules-based. That's why we call it free-form. It still has to be comprehensible, but unfortunately that rule generally applies between two native speakers, and sometimes not even then. I remember when I lived in Ireland, an English-speaking country, there were several people in the local village who could speak to me in English, and I simply couldn't understand anything they said. Dialect and pronunciation issues like these are just some of the problems with conversational English. And that gives us the second reason why conversational English is so difficult. No matter how much you practice, no matter how much time you spend on it, there will always be new challenges to overcome. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't try, and it doesn't mean we can't improve. And that's what AEA Track C is all about. We can't teach you to suddenly become an expert conversationalist in English, but we can teach you how to think about the problems, and how to face the challenges, and how to toss the English rulebook aside and get to grips with the reality of English as she is spoken. So, let's get on with it. Let's try to answer the question below: why is conversational English so difficult?
So, an interesting one. Why is conversational English so difficult? Well, here on the left are just some of the problems and challenges which we face. Elision, speed, colloquialisms, phrasal verbs, accent, structure, and differences. Everyone is different. Every culture is different. Every local area is different. There are many factors which can cause conversational English to be a bit of a problem. And here is just a very simple example. So here are two very simple and very similar questions. How did you do that? And how do you do that? How did you do that? How do you do that? Very simple questions, but with quite different meanings. And what we're looking at here for these particular sentences is we're looking at the problem areas of elision and speed. Speed, I'm sure you understand. Elision is more of a technical term. So let's have a very quick look at that. What you'll find throughout these videos is that every so often we revert to a blue screen. When you see a blue screen, feel free to pause the video and read through the material that's there. We don't usually have time to go through this information in very much detail. And that's true here. Here is an overview and definition of elision. You don't need to worry too much about the technicalities, but elision is something which we all do. Elision is something which happens all the time. So we have to be prepared to work with it. Now then, let's have a look at these two sentences. How did you do that? How do you do that? Let's look at the first one. When we say it properly, when we say it in classroom English, we say, how did you do that? But 9 times out of 10, in general conversation, we would say something like, how'd you do that? How'd you do that? So not, how did you do that? But something like, how'd you do that? How'd you do that? Let's have a look at the next one. How do you do that? How do you do that? How'd you do that? How'd you do that? How'd you do that? Again, very different from classroom English. How do you do that? Instead, we say, how'd you do that? How'd you do that? Now then, the serious thing comes in when we compare them. How did you do that is, how'd you do that? How'd you do that? How do you do that is, how'd you do that? How'd you do that? The first one is, how'd you do that? The second one is, how'd you do that? How'd ya? How'd you? How'd ya? How'd you? How'd ya? How'd you? I'm actually slightly overemphasizing those, but that just shows you that there are two very similar sentences, two very similar questions. And if we speak them in classroom English, they sound different. Unfortunately, the way we speak them in conversational English, they are very, very close. How'd you do that? How'd you do that? How'd you? How'd you? It's very difficult. It's not impossible, and that's why we're here. That's what we're trying to work with you on, is making sure that you understand these problems and can listen for them. And that's part of what AEA Track A is all about. So we're talking about conversational skills, and there are 4 of them that we need to think about. Speaking, obviously. Listening. It's a two-way thing. Conversation has to be 2 ways. Then we have processing. A lot of what we talk about here is processing, thinking about it, and thinking in English, as and when we can. And then the 4th one is comprehension, understanding. So we listen or we speak, and behind it all, there's processing, there's thinking, and there's comprehension, understanding. Those are the 4 primary conversational skills, but they're not in the correct order. It may surprise you, seeing as how conversation is a speaking activity, but in reality, speaking is the least important of these 4 conversational skills. And we'll look at exactly why that is true in a moment. So here we have another blue screen, and on it we have some interesting information about time spent communicating. In our waking lives, most of us spend about 70% of our time communicating. That's more for some people, less for others, I guess. But if we look at the right-hand side of the graph, note that listening is typically about 45%, which is significantly greater than speaking, and speaking is greater than writing and reading put together. But listening is by far the largest component. An old boss of mine used to tell me, hey, you have 1 mouth and 2 ears. That should give you a clue. Listen twice as much as you talk. I've always found that to be good advice. And as far as conversational English is concerned, listening, thinking, and understanding is critical. Here's another blue screen for you to read. Please feel free to pause the video. This is a very interesting look at why we listen, the difference between listening and just hearing, and the purposes behind listening. But I'll let you read through it on your own. So, back to this one, in the correct order. The interesting question that we have to ask here, though, are what are the basic building blocks of spoken English? Here is the answer to a question. It's actually completely sensible. It just doesn't look very sensible. Down the shops, I want a new charger, you coming? Down the shops, I want a new charger, you coming? What does that mean? What does it say? What question does it answer? Well, it answers this question. Where are you going? Where are you going? Let's look at that in classical English. Where are you going to? Where are you going to? Now we understand. Where are you going to is the question that's asked. But the full answer is, I am going down to the shopping area because I want to buy a new charger for my mobile phone. Would you like to come shopping as well? That is classically what we would say, rather, what we would write if we were answering that question in full classical English. But we're not. We're talking about conversational English. So the answer is, where are you going to? Down the shops. I want a new charger. You coming? It's much shorter, it's much faster, and for most people, it's much more natural. That is why you will find it difficult to listen to and understand two English speakers talking together if you don't understand the nature of conversational English. So, what are the basic building blocks of spoken English? Well, we write in sentences and we read in sentences, but we talk in and we listen to a mixture of words, phrases, grunts, and body language. We don't speak in sentences. We don't listen in sentences. Sentences are pretty much for physical and electronic media. That's why conversational English is so difficult. Some quick information here on the left. Body language is probably something you've heard of, but just to read it quickly, body language is non-verbal communication in which physical behavior, as opposed to words, are used to express or convey information. Body language can include facial expressions, posture, gestures, eye movement, touch, and the use of space and position. Body language, there's always debate about this, but some people believe that body language can be up to 40% of the meaning in a face-to-face conversation. Certainly, body language is the reason why it is much more difficult to communicate by phone if you're not a native speaker, because you don't get the clues from the body language, from the face, from the movement of the body and the hands. Body language is very important, and that's something we will spend time on in Track C of AEA. So, in school, in language centres, and even in online classes, by and large, you are taught correct English, what we call proper English. AEA Track C will help you to learn when, where, how, and why we break the rules, because that's how conversational English works. So now, all these lessons finish with a challenge. So AEA Challenge 1, Very simple. We started with these two sentences. How did you do that? How do you do that? Simply write down an explanation of the difference between these two sentences. What is the difference in their meaning, and what is the difference in the way we use them? An interesting challenge, a written challenge. However, challenge 2 moves to the conversational element. Once you have written your piece explaining what these sentences are like and how we use them, then explain the difference to an English-speaking friend. If you can't find an English-speaking friend, explain it to your phone and then listen to it. The important thing, though, is no notes. Do not read out your explanation. Take that knowledge, take that information, take that study, and turn it into spoken English. If you can do it with a friend, a buddy, or an acquaintance, that's conversation. But if you do it on the phone, it's talking, listening, thinking, processing, and understanding. And then we have challenge 3. Watch this short video and create an accurate word-for-word transcript of the conversation. Here we go.
Four candles.
4 candles. Here you are. 4 candles.
No, 4 candles.
Well, there you are, 4 candles.
No, 4 candles. Handles for forks. Got any plugs?
Plugs?
Yeah.
What kind of plugs?
A rubber one, bathroom.
What size?
13 amp.
Electric bathroom plugs, you call them. Trade. Electric bathroom. Right.
Saw tips.
Saw tips. What do you want, ointment or something like that?
No, saw tips, but covering the saws. Tips.
No, we haven't got any.
Oh.
Coming in, but we haven't got any.
Got any O's?
O's?
O's. No O's.
O's? I thought you meant O's. O's. You say O's, you say that. O's, you meant O's.
No O's.
O's? What a... Oh, you mean pantyhose? Pantyhose?
No, O's. O's for the gate. Mon repose. O's. Letter O's.
Letter O. did you want?
2.
2. Right. Yeah, next.
Got any peas?
God's sake, why didn't you bleeding tell me that I'm upstairs? I'm upstairs already for that. They could tell me bleeding there. I'm up and down the shop all the time. I've got all the shop up and down any help today. You might tell me when I'm planning things. I've got a plan for How many do you want?
No, tins of peas. 3 tins of peas.
You're having me on, aren't you? Having me on. There we are. Right.
Pumps.
Pumps?
Pumps.
Hand pumps, foot pumps. Come on.
Foot pumps.
Foot pumps. Foot pumps. See the foot pumps. Tidy up, can you? There we are.
No pumps for your feet. Brown pump, size 9.
You are having me on. You are definitely having me on.
No.
You are.
Washers.
What? Windscreen washers, car washers, dishwashers, floor washers, back scrubbers, lavatory cleaners, floor washers.
Half-inch washers.
Oh, tap washers, tap washers.
Yeah.
Look, I've had about enough of this. Give us that list. Make it all myself down here. What's this? What's that? Oh, that does it. That does. I've had just about enough of this. Mr. Jones, will you come out and service customer, please? I've just about had enough of this. Look what it's got on there. Look what it's got on there.
Right. How many would you like? 1 or 2?
So that was the 2 Ronnies in a very famous and very funny sketch. And the challenge is to create an accurate word-for-word transcript of the conversation. If this seems too difficult a challenge, and it is a very difficult challenge, think about what that means and think about real-life communication problems you might face. It is a difficult challenge, but have a go at it. Try it. See how well you can do. The language is actually quite simple. It is merely the sounds that they make which are a problem. Anyway, give it a go. If you can't make much headway with it, send me an email and I will send you a copy of the original transcript. So that's it. If you want to get hold of me, just send me an email, jock@4c.com. And if you want any more information on advanced English acquisition, just visit our website, www.4c.com. I look forward to giving you some more challenges in the near future.